You've probably seen it everywhere, right? That super simple three-number rule that promises to fix all your money problems. But what if I told you that almost everyone, and I mean everyone, gets its true purpose completely, fundamentally wrong? Well, let's dig in and uncover the truth. It's a question that drives people crazy. You try the famous 50-30-20 rule, you're all in, but a month or two later, it just falls apart. If it's supposed to be the world's easiest budget, why does it feel so impossible to stick with? You are not alone in feeling this way, and trust me, the answer is not what you think. You know the feeling. Your paycheck hits the bank account, you pay your bills, you buy some groceries, you try to have a little fun, and then poof. It feels like the money just vanishes into thin air. So, to fight back, we try these crazy complicated spreadsheets and apps that want us to track every last cent. But honestly, who has time for that? It leads to total burnout, and we just give up. And right into that moment of frustration, in walks this hero. A beautifully simple, almost magical rule that promises to fix everything without all the spreadsheets and the headaches. It was so simple, it was practically destined to go viral. The appeal is just how simple it is. The whole idea is, after you pay your taxes, you just slice up your income into three buckets. That's it. 50% for your absolute needs, 30% for your wants, and that last 20% goes straight to savings and paying down debt. Sounds easy enough, right? So let's just quickly break that down. That big 50% chunk for needs, that's for the stuff you absolutely cannot live without. A roof over your head, keeping the lights on, the food you need to survive, and a way to get to work. The 30% for wants, well, that's the fun stuff. It's your lifestyle money for restaurants, Netflix, hobbies, you name it. And that last 20%, that is so crucial. That's for your future self, building savings, investing, and really attacking that debt. And that simplicity, well, that's exactly why it absolutely exploded on social media. I mean, think about it. On platforms like TikTok, creators in the whole #MoneyTalk world could explain the entire system in like 30 seconds. It just felt so easy, so achievable, and it quickly became the go-to advice for a whole new generation trying to get a handle on their money. Okay, but here is the giant plot twist in this whole story. This viral sensation wasn't cooked up by some finance bro or a wealth guru. No, its origin is actually way more serious, and knowing it is going to completely change how you see this rule forever. So, let's jump back in time to 2005. The person who first made this rule famous was Elizabeth Warren. Long before she was a senator, she was one of the nation's top experts on bankruptcy law at Harvard. She saw this crisis where regular middle-class families were just getting financially wiped out, so she wrote a book about it with her daughter. And this is the most important thing you need to hear today. The 50-30-20 rule was never, ever designed to make you rich. It was designed as a financial guardrail. It's a simple test to see if your family is on the path to financial collapse. It's a survival strategy, not a wealth-building strategy. And that one little fact, it changes everything. Okay, so knowing its real purpose is a huge piece of the puzzle, but it still doesn't explain why so many of us try it and fail. Well, the reason for that isn't in our spreadsheets or our bank accounts, it's in our heads. There's this tiny psychological glitch that just completely derails the whole system. The entire budget completely breaks down at the very first step, just figuring out where your money goes. And the number one reason this rule fails is because we constantly, and maybe not even consciously, label our wants as needs just so we can justify spending the money. We all do this. We tell ourselves we need that brand new car for safety and reliability, when a perfectly safe used car would get the job done. Or we say we need to shop at that expensive organic grocery store for our health, when the regular store has perfectly good produce. Look, a need is the basic function. Food, shelter, a way to get around. The fancy, premium version of that function, that's almost always a want. So how do you beat this little brain glitch? You use something called the substitution test. It's just one simple but really powerful question. Before you call something a need, just ask yourself, could I meet this exact same need for a lot less money? If the honest answer is yes, then all that extra money you're spending, the premium, that belongs squarely in your wants category. Okay, so now we know its secret origin, and we know about the biggest psychological trap. So how do we actually make this thing work for us? The key is to stop thinking about it as this rigid, strict budget and start using it for what it was always meant to be, a diagnostic tool. It's really just a 4-step process. First, don't try to guess about the future. Do a historical audit. Just look back at your last 3 months of spending. Second, Using that substitution test we just talked about, categorize every single purchase. You have to be brutally honest with yourself. Third, and this is huge, automate it. Set up automatic transfers on payday into separate accounts for your needs, wants, and savings. Take willpower completely out of the equation. And finally, check in every few months. Your life changes, and your budget has to change with it. Now, this next part is absolutely critical to understand. This rule was never meant to be this rigid thing you could never, ever break. In fact, if you try to stick to the exact percentages no matter what's happening in your life, you're just setting yourself up to fail. Just take a look here. If you live in a really expensive city, your needs might realistically take up 60% of your income. That's okay. It just means you have to shrink your wants down to 20%. Or maybe you're totally focused on crushing your debt. You could slash your wants down to 10% and funnel a massive 40% towards savings and debt. See? The percentages are just a starting point. They're not a prison. There's this great quote that's often credited to Einstein, and it perfectly sums up the biggest legitimate criticism of the 50-30-20 rule. For a lot of people, especially those with really low incomes or even really high incomes, the rule is just too simple. It simplifies the problem so much that it stops being helpful. So that really brings us to the big final question, doesn't it? When you think about its real origin, as a tool to keep people from going bankrupt, and you know its biggest failure point is our own psychology, should we even be calling the 50-30-20 rule a budget at all? Or is it actually more like a financial stress test, just a quick checkup to see how close you are to the edge? I'd love to know what you think. Let me know down in the comments.